popped out. All right, got the chat in front of me. Let me send a tweet. All right, cool. What's up, Josh? Merry Christmas, brother. So today's prep is going to be completely freestyled. I got no notes written down. Literally have not even looked at any charts since our day off from the market. And you guys might actually gain more from watching this be done from scratch than the typical one where, you know, I've got a lot of notes and kind of know the direction I'm going. So we'll see. Hopefully it works out really well this week doing it this way, because it was either this or I was just not going to do it. And I, you know, it's the holiday spirit to keep trying to add value, give back. And so I said, screw it, let's do one. I'll wait till 3 more minutes like we usually do. Yo, what's up, D? Dino, D22, Glade, what's up, guys? Merry Christmas. I don't know if it's allergies. My eye is itching like crazy right now. Oh. Do I short small caps? Yes, I do. But that's not typically what I do on these Sunday preps. Sunday preps are looking for ideas for the week, theme, identifying the overall market trends, and trying to just make a game plan for Monday, Tuesday, and possibly a few things that could develop later in the week. And I don't really see anything in small cap land that deserves to be on the Sunday prep this week. But again, we'll see when I start looking at charts here in a little bit. I wish I need some eye drops or something. Hey, if you guys can, share the link to the stream. If you're on Twitter or whatever, go retweet the one I tweeted, or just share the YouTube link. Let's get some people in here. Awesome. Thank you, Benjamin. And this is going to be a much more interactive Sunday prep than the typical one. So like, as I'm kind of doing the prep and thinking about the way I'm seeing charts and ideas, let's generate some back and forth and have a good session here where maybe a lot of people's questions can get answered, as well as it may actually help me in some idea generation. So we'll see. But remember that, keep that in mind, and don't be shy. Throw things in the chat and let's have a nice little discussion. What's up, Tugboat? Man, Merry Christmas to you too, bro. Yeah, I'm happy to see you guys in here. My red eye, I feel like it makes it look like I've been crying or something. Must be all that Bing Crosby music. And I don't, typically I start off these Sunday preps with, like more of like a psychological type discussion, talking about different pitfalls I see a lot of traders succumb to. I don't really have, like I said, no notes. This is completely freestyled this week. And so I don't really have anything prepared for that. But as we start discussing ideas, I may actually be like, this is actually a good segue into a certain topic, and so I'll just use it that way. So we're at 5 o'clock. It's time to kick this off. This is the last Sunday prep of the year of 2021. I hope everybody had a great 21. I hope everybody's looking forward to a killer 2022. And remember, it's not the time to just, if you feel like you fell short for the year, it's not time to press buttons heavy into the last week of the year and try to make up for lost time or try to fill any sort of gaps, because this week heading into the New Year's Eve weekend and stuff is not going to be, at least I'm not anticipating a ton of action. A lot of times it's a lower volume week. Moves are kind of just so we'll see what the week brings us, but I'm not in any kind of mind state where I'm like out there trying to mash buttons and force trades or manufacture trades. Keep in mind that's something that everyone will struggle with from time to time, and it's this human nature of ours that will see a trade even if there's nothing there. So one of the things I think is important to pay attention to as I do this Sunday prep is how, for instance, when we get into the sector ETS, right, we're doing our sector analysis. I'm literally just kind of going to go through the ETS one at a time, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the chart unless something jumps out at me. And that's the way trades should be too, because if you stare at something hard enough, long enough, and want to see something from a technical standpoint, you will. Your brain will just start to see things, and you'll convince yourself that it's logical and rational, and it very well may not be. So ideas need to be something that just jump out and scream at you, as opposed to something where I feel like I can contort myself into a pretzel here and be like, yeah, that's a long. No. So this is that time of year. David. This is that time of year where it's like, I don't want to force anything. I want to, if something sets up, great. If not, fine. But a lot of people get into trouble because they're trying to, make up for a year's worth of underperforming in the last week. And I don't want you guys to do that. I want you guys to understand that there's always the next best trade setting up. And if you're forcing things and, getting yourself into trouble by touching hot stoves, you're not going to be ready to capitalize on those A-plus setups when they do come. So make sure you guys understand that. Let's just jump right into the disclaimer. Guys, neither I nor TrueTrader or anybody that's a representative are registered as securities broker dealers. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Nothing I talk about today is a solicitation to buy or sell any stocks. It's literally just my opinion, how I see things setting up, and how I will approach this coming week. And understand that anything you hear me say is for entertainment purposes only, guys. All right, so let's jump into some charts, guys. This is Sunday Prep, the freestyle version. No notes, nothing. I haven't looked at any charts. This is the ES. We always start with the broader market, and I like to actually start with the higher time frames. If this is your first time actually tuning into one of these, just know that I try to follow a roadmap, and that way there's consistency in the ideas and the thought processes and the way they unfold. So this is the monthly ES, guys. And so come January, we'll get a new monthly candle. We're flirting with all-time highs heading into the weekend. And we actually close. I think I mentioned it to a friend. I said, I think we closed 14 cents below the highest all-time close on the SPY. And so, if this week we take out highs, you're literally going to have a monthly candle that took out the November lows, and then we ended up going higher than November. So it's just a very big bullish engulfing candle if we end up higher, right? If not, if we literally can't get back above November's highs, it's not a big deal, because January's monthly candle, if we take it out then, is just going to be a continuation of the trend higher. And remember, there's no shortage of people out there that are doom and gloom talking about, the breadth. If you guys haven't been on Twitter, everybody has an opinion on the breadth, and how there's all these stocks that, even though the indices are up at the highs, all these other names just look like garbage. Again, trade what's in front of you guys. Don't listen to the people on social media. Form your own opinions, and it's okay to be wrong. And that's part of creating these plans, is like, when you create your own plan, when you're wrong, and how to admit it, and you can move on. If you're just following somebody else's plan, it's really hard to know where that plan is wrong for that person, or where they're going to stop out. So you guys need to understand how to create these. So then the weekly chart, again, I really, really like the way this looks. We pulled back, weekly 20, right? Push up, higher low, held the weekly 20 again. And we're just being objective here. What are we seeing? We're seeing a higher low form on a higher time frame. This is a weekly chart. So if we take out these highs, that's a long trigger that should continue us higher. It should get us going. And I mean, it's as bullish as it comes with all this bearish talk out there, right? Now, we haven't taken out the highs yet, but this price action looks good, okay? And remember, it happened right back here too. This is in September. Pull back to the weekly 20, push up, pull back, make a higher low, break. And what have we done? Just trend up since. And you can see this happen over and over again. There's one right here. Pull back to the weekly 20, push up, make a higher low, break the highs, trend away. Just read the trend, guys. It's very simple, okay? It's not supposed to be complicated, okay? So here's your daily. Everything looks great here. Again, I mean, on the ES, actually, we did close. That's funny because I didn't look at the ES when I was talking with a friend. I was looking at the SPY. But the ES actually did close at its highest close of all time, right? So I don't see anything bearish about that. Now, levels of support, guys. Very, very simple. Your quarterly and your monthly pivot here, again, we never know, are we going to gap down or up tomorrow morning, but we'll make plans for everything, right? So if we're kind of opening flattish to gap up somewhere in that level, I would be looking at these monthly and quarterly stack pivot areas. It's 46.85, 46.82, and then next below that would be this 46.50 area. You got your 20-day and the monthly and the 50 all in the same little area. So that is, to me, is like that 46.30 area is going to be very, very clutch. It's a range, right? I'm not saying 46.30 like on the dot. You have the 50-day at 46.21. You have the 20-day at 46.31. You have that monthly pivot at 46.21. There's a lot of confluence there, a lot of reasons why, and there's also Thursday's lows, right? So that would be a very strong level of support for me. Now, all-time highs is going to be your first level of resistance. If we were gapping down, let's say we gap down into that monthly 20 or something like that, then on the upside, I'd be looking for Friday's lows as resistance, which puts you right into that quarterly and monthly pivot as well. If we were to get above all-time highs, you definitely have the annual and quarterly right up there at that 4,800 area. And we'll discuss those types of things if and when that happens. So move on to the Nasdaq. Again, it's going to look very similar. Now, one of the things I'll point out real quick before I go into the higher time frames. One of the very first things I notice when I look at this daily chart versus what we saw on the ES is that this pullback here actually made a new low compared to that early December low, right? We broke. So that should have taken the Nasdaq lower. So for this to fail, to go lower, and then possibly come back up here and get above 16,455, that should be a pretty powerful long trigger because it had the failed short prior to it. And people that are part of TT, they'll know, they've heard me say this plenty of times. If you're not part of the True Trader community, you may never have heard me say this, but failed triggers in one direction, meaning like it triggered the short, it should go lower. When they fail to do that, we call it a failed trigger. It becomes a failed trigger when it triggers the opposite way, right? So if it triggers a short and then doesn't go lower and then goes and triggers a long, that means it was a failed short trigger. And those create the biggest triggers on the opposite direction when they happen. That's the first thing I see right here when I look at the daily is that we actually rolled over last week and got lower. I think this was this Monday's candle? Yeah, and I think I actually, on the ES, I think I referred to this as Friday's candle. It's not. That was, what was the 23rd? Was it Wednesday? Let me pull up a thing here. It was Thursday. Okay, so this is a Thursday candle here, guys. So forgive me on that. This NQ chart looks like it could get going. Yeah, and you can see it here. you had inside week, not this last week, the week before it, and then we tried to go lower. So if this fails and we get back above the highs from the last 4 weeks, this really could get going. Okay, so that's the way I'm seeing the NQ as far as support and resistance. Obviously, this 16,455 level first. We get through that, then you have your all-time highs and that monthly and quarterly pivot. Those are the levels of resistance. Obviously, all-time highs as well. Below that, the 50-day and the 20-day area, just like on the SPY or at the ES, is going to put you right into that psychological 16K level, okay? And then below that, you have your weekly 20 and your monthly pivot that are going to be right around that same area as well. So anything down in that 15.6 to 15.7 area, not 15.7, 15, let's just call it 15.6 to 15.5 actually, is going to be a good level of support for us as well. And that's pretty much sums up the NQ. Let's go on to the Bitcoin stuff. Actually, you know what's funny is I haven't checked Bitcoin for the last 4 or 5 days, so I was kind of interested to see what this looked like. We still haven't hit this alert that I set during the last Sunday prep. Remember, that is the long trigger, but I already kind of laid out what I think is going to happen is we may just push straight up into the underside of the trend line we broke, this really strong level of support that got broke, and now the first test of it, we'll be watching to see if its support turned into resistance. And it's going to also put us close to the 50-day as well as that quarterly pivot. So I don't trade cryptos, guys, but I do follow it because I like to trade the crypto-related equities like Maras and Riots and coins. So if we slam up into these levels and it looks like it's going to reject, remember Mara, it's funny, a lot of stuff's coming back to me from last week since I haven't looked at any charts, right? One of the things I remember was Mara had a huge move on Thursday, right? So I'm sure when we get into the actual ideas, I'll probably end up looking at a Mara chart, okay? So Mara had a big move. If this wants to rip and stuff into some levels, that should put Mara right up into some levels as well that may be a big trade setting up over there. Yeah, so that's the crypto stuff, guys. Actually, levels of support are going to be the 200-day, the 20-day, and below that, you got your annual pivot around 14. What is it? Sorry, not 14. 46,187 on a mother effing cap. Sorry, that's just the hip hop head in me, guys. All right, so that's your broader market, okay? Now we move on to our sector analysis, which I always use barchart.com to kind of check out these this little sector matrix I have. So I use the short-term matrix, and it gives me a nice little visual of what the different sectors have been doing, okay? Right off the bat, consumer discretionary jumps off the page at me, as well as the communication services. And let's see, financials were weak, and so were utilities. I don't trade utilities. I pay attention to when utilities are strong or weak and what's strong and weak with them, because you know, if we're going to go into a correction, a lot of times utilities and staples and some of these other things will be stronger, versus when we're in a bull market, you'll oftentimes be led by things like the technology sectors. So utilities were weak just last week. But remember, we just take this with a grain of salt because we need to go and look at the actual ETFs to see what's really happening underneath the hood. Okay, so I'll just go right down the list in order. And again, remember, we're not going to spend a lot of time on these. I will make notes in my head, or you know, a lot of times I have a notepad open and I'll type out the notes as well. But I just want to see if anything jumps off the page, right? So retail, yes, it bounced. I remember a lot of stuff was kind of beaten down and things started to get a bounce. Remember what we said last week about it was, even if it bounces, it's got a lot of overhead to chew through before it starts to look good again to me. And I still feel that same way. Like there is a lot of sideways action that happened that we're below. So a pop back into the 20-day or the annual pivot might actually be good for a fade on any names in that sector. So financials, remember they had a week is overall -1% on the week. So it's nothing to get worried about, or you know, but in my opinion, this is starting to get back above some levels. as opposed to like what retail just looked like, right? Now, one thing I will pay attention to is the fact that Thursday's candle was hideous. That's a really ugly daily candle. So I will be interested into seeing what comes of this, right? Does this end up being a pivot point here that is a turning spot for the move up and we come back lower now? Or does this find some support early on and then push back up? Again, there's no reason for me to want to be long financials at the moment with their sector ETF looking like this. And so another thing is I don't trade a lot of real estate equities. There's a lot of things I don't trade a lot of. And so like when I look at their ETFs, I'm making mental notes, but I'm not really coming up with trade ideas based off. The healthcare sector still looks strong. Remember, things like CVS is in that, and CVS has just been a runaway train. Let's see. These materials look okay. Definitely a bullish looking chart, right? Especially if you, and remember guys, I love to look at these higher time frames, right? Look at this weekly chart. So push up, pull back, intermediate high here, a higher low. Then I'll set an alert right here, and this is what I do, guys, when I do these preps is I set alerts for the coming week, right? And so if this triggers, I know that the material sector overall, the ETF, the sector as a whole, is telling me it's bullish and wants to go higher. It doesn't mean there's a trade right away, but if we start looking at different isolated equities in that sector, we may find a chart that looks really good, ready to go. And then if you get that alert later, you know the chart to pull up. You don't have to be like, let's go find a stock that's in the material sector, right? Let's see. Let's throw it back to a daily real quick. Just see if another one. This is another one that looked really good right there on the weekly, right? Boom. Pull back to the weekly 50. Push up. Higher low. Set another alert. There's no such thing as too many alerts, guys. Anytime you see a significant level, throw an alert on it. It doesn't do any harm, okay? Let's see here. Utilities look fine. Consumer staples. Now, this was one, remember, we talked about last week. I said, I think if we have a big pullback towards this breakout area, that it may end up setting up for another leg higher. So it started to bounce. It didn't get back to the 20-day. But it looks good. So, and there's definitely things in this sector that I will trade. Consumer discretionary still looks okay. It's just kind of a big flag here. Let's see, right into the weekly 20 and a nice big bounce since the pullback, right? So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks with this sector. Communications. Now remember, communications had a good week, right? Remember, if we were just going off this, you'd be like, oh, communication services up almost 2% on the week. Maybe we should be looking to get long some of these communications names. I don't know. The sector ETF tells me that there's a lot of overhead resistance up here, and this may end up stuffing and then rolling back over. It would need to get above some levels before I start to get interested in the longs in that sector. Doesn't mean that there won't be individual names that may have some strength. There probably is, right? Communications services sector has a lot of tech names in there. So it's hard to make a blanket statement about that sector. Let's see. Now, biotechs. Remember, we were talking about how we broke down from this channel. We're trying to get back into the channel. I don't know if we will, but right now we still are into the resistance part of it. We'll see what they do. This one looks very, very healthy. Very good looking chart here, which is, this is going to be a lot like the Nasdaq. This is just your tech sector here. Okay, in energy and oil, I always like to use the higher time frames for sure. Everything looks fine here. Yes, it came in a little lower than I think a lot of people wanted to if you were staring at a daily chart, but on a weekly, you can clearly see this is a retest of a recent breakout area and into the weekly 50. So nothing about this looks bearish. I think energy eventually wants to break this trend line and try higher, similar to what oil's already done, right? And oil looks good. Oil looks really good right off the weekly 50, big bounce. I mean, we're just holding this trend line here. Everything looks really good. So that's the sector analysis, and a lot of that will stay fresh in my head. Things that look good, right? Things that maybe if you were looking at bar chart, you'd think look good. But what did we say? We said financials, they don't look, or they have a lot of, not financials, I'm sorry. What was it that we were saying? Had that over the retail. Retail had a bunch of overhead resistance, and so did the communication services, right? So a lot of that stuff will stay kind of tucked away in the back of my mind so that I can, pull from that memory bank when it's time to execute trade ideas or come up with trade ideas. So now that we know like the broader view of the market, and we also know like what the sectors are doing when you kind of break it down, now we want to start getting into individual ideas. And I use FinViz for a screener. I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there that use other stuff that works great. This just works good for me. So I start with long ideas. It doesn't mean I won't find some short ideas first. While we're going through this, I very well may. But the first thing I want to do is just look for things that had strong closes. Right now, nothing really showing up on that scan. Oh, that was weak closes. There we go. Okay, so no charts are meeting these criteria. Again, sometimes I will just tweak a filter or two because I know that there's a lot of things that are still making new highs for the last 20 days. That's still a strong stock, right? We don't necessarily have to have something that closed up 5% on the day. Yo, what's up, Cruz? I see you in the chat. Oh, what's up, Jordan? Merry Christmas, guys. So let's just start. This right here is looking for stocks, and actually I'm going to change this volume. I don't want things with just a million shares trading, right? So there's 27 charts that meet this criteria. It doesn't take me long to kind of spot something that may look good for what I'm looking for. Now, remember, indices are at all-time highs. Do you think a stock that's trading below its 200-day and has been absolutely crushed and hasn't been able to bounce during this rally is something you're going to want to have as an idea for something exhibiting strength? No. For me, I'm looking for stocks that during this market rally have also pushed, right? So it makes a lot of sense that we're going to use the screener to look for stocks trading close to highs, or I like to look for stuff that in the last 20 days it's at the highs of that range, right? So we're kind of just looking at charts that have strength here, and we'll just see if we can spot some. BLDR, I remember seeing this one on the IBD's top 50 list this week, so let's take a look at it. It's actually been hitting our scanner a lot lately too in some things. Yeah, it's up and away. There's no way I'm going to take a long on a name like this until it has a pullback or some sideways action. So remember, just because something's strong and in beast mode, you can't just be chasing things, right? We need things that have healthy pullbacks to key levels of support, and that the support shows up when you expect it to. You don't want to be like, imagine right here, we're like, all right, we're going to buy at the 20-day on a pullback to the 20-day. Well, if it doesn't get a close like this, if it just closes at the lows of the day on this pullback and then goes lower, you can't stay in that trade, right? Even if it eventually bounces and heads higher, you didn't honor your plan, or your plan was whack to begin with, because you have to have a thesis. Your thesis is, this is a strong stock. When it pulls back to levels of support, buyers are going to show up. And then they don't show up and you stay in the trade, right? That's ludicrous. You stick to your plan. It's okay if it goes higher without you. It's not okay that you break your rules and get bagged and end up riding something even lower than you wanted to, okay? Let's see here. MU's been a beast. We will look at probably the whole chip sector in STX. That's one that I've been watching because it had a higher time frame trigger. And what I mean by that, you had the pullback, higher low, higher high. This should take us back to all-time highs. We're a bit extended up here. I'm not in the mood to chase anything like this. Average volume's a bit thin. But if this were to have a nice, healthy pullback, I'm just going to throw an alert out there right above that quarterly pivot, because this has been a strong stock. It triggered on a higher time frame. I do want to be alerted if we pull back towards that quarterly pivot. So, and here's the other thing, guys. One thing you might notice about when I do this live, right, freestyling it, is that I set a lot of alerts. And you might be like, man, I didn't realize Ricky's putting alerts on 1,000 different stocks, because all you see is the distilled version of like my ideas. I'll go through a bunch of ideas. I'll write down the ones I think are worth putting in front of the Sunday prep crowd. And then, you know, you're only getting that. You're not seeing the actual behind the scenes thought process and sending a million alerts, because I mean, there's a lot of times you guys are only getting 10 to 12 ideas or whatever, but there's a lot more that was actually worth discussing from the actual work that went in. So this is this trade's correlated to STX. They're similar companies, right? They both make both these companies make basically storage devices. Hopefully you guys are familiar with Western Digital and Seagate. They make those external hard drives and stuff we always buy, and they crash and lose all your family's photos. But this chart looks very good too, and I'm actually looking for it to do one of two things here. So I'm going to set an alert for the break over this high right here, the high from November 12th, or I want to be alerted on a pullback towards the 20. So if we get a pullback towards the 20, I'll probably be a buyer, especially if we come in emotionally. If we break above November 12th highs, then I'm going to look to be a buyer on a dip back to probably the quarterly pivot in that 60 level. So I do like WDC chart. Dude, this dude in here typing this VARC tech crap. I see you spamming my videos all the time, you dork. Can we boot this guy? Thank you. Stupid spammers. All right, let's go back to the FinViz. All right, so that's just one scan I have, right, for strong stocks. Let's look for just off highs for swings. A lot of times I'll find some names in here that I like, okay? And as the name kind of implies, right, these are just off highs for possible swings, but I'll bump up this average volume criteria and probably this average true range and get us some more ideas that are closer, that are going to be better probably for the day trade ideas. Because swings for me, I don't care too much about the volume or the range, because if something has a 70-cent range, but it's going to be a swing trade, 70 cents a day, you know, that range adds up. But for a day trade, we need things that have that intraday move and the volume. So right off the bat, I do see Nike, which I know I've been following a lot. Hopefully you guys have too, after their earnings, right? So far, since their numbers came out, this thing has not been able to get its footing, but I don't think that it means it's not going to, and that we should probably take it off watch, because look what we've done. We pulled back, and so this is just looking inside the time frames, right, as opposed to the daily chart. I'm starting to already see what I want to see here, and that's this little low here, followed by a push up to this, the highs from Thursday. And so basically, I want to see if this pulls back one more time and makes a higher low here. And then the break of this high here, Thursday's high day, is what would get me involved in the trade if it does that. So I am going to keep Nike on watch. I will probably trade it throughout the week. You know, as long as the volume stays decent and the range is there. All it's doing right now is tightening up, right? I think it's going to have a move one way or another. Knowing it's Nike, probably higher. So what I'm looking for is, like I just said, guys, I want to see a flush. I may actually be getting long this name on a flush into Wednesday's low a day with risk under it, right? I'll cut it if it loses Wednesday's lows. Yeah, that was a funny pun, wasn't it, Josh? It wasn't even on purpose either. I may buy it against 164 and risk under Wednesday's lows in anticipation of getting that higher low. Because then if we trigger back above Thursday's highs, that's when you can kind of build into the trade and see if you can let it work for a much, much bigger idea trade there. But I like the way that it's getting tighter, right? And what do I mean by that? I mean, look at the daily candles. The range is coming together. The range is getting narrower. And so Friday or Thursday was an inside day. So, you know, we got that quarterly pivot at 164.93. How come was that not showing here? Oh, I turned my pivots off. See, didn't have my, now I got some levels here, baby. All right, so we do have a quarterly pivot right there too. So I'll be very interested Monday morning, tomorrow, see if we get that early flush, shake out some weak hands, and then try to get its engine running under it, because I think Nike's going to make a move here. One question: what's your minimum risk reward on your trade? It just depends. So there's definitely times when I take trades that are 1-to-1, but that setup has to, you have to know the statistics behind your setups, right? If I'm taking a trade that's 1-to-1, I have to know that I'm going to be right 60-70% of the time on that idea, because if you're trying to take 1-to-1 and you know that you're only right on this idea like 33% of the time, the other 2/3 of the time it stops you out, guess what? That's a losing strategy, because your risk reward and that win rate is going to give you a negative expectancy. But there's other times when I know that I'm probably going to get 3 or 4-to-1 on this idea, so I don't need to be right very often. So it's going to be setup specific, so I can't really give you a black and white answer to that. So I see Tugboats throwing out that FFIV idea. I am definitely going to look into, so if you guys throw ideas in the chat, I will come to them. I just wanted to make sure that I finished the thought processes I'm on. So don't think I'm ignoring you guys, okay? So let's check out FFIV. He said he already threw it out there. It's light on the volume, but that is a sexy ass chart. He's 100% right. And if you guys don't know my boy Tug, he's a really good trader, and he's a good dude too. So give that guy a follow. Yeah, again, he already threw it out there that it's light on the volume, so that'll probably keep me out of it. But if it's swinging, you got the higher lows, and you do have some all-time highs you're flirting with, right? So over that 240 area, you're probably going to get going. So Roman's throwing out there that MU. Let's just do a sector check right now. That's what I call it whenever I see one chart from a sector, like for instance AMD, and I'm gonna make sure I'll go, well, we just looked at AMD, let's look at Nvidia, let's look at MU, let's look at AMAT, let's look at all the names in these sectors, okay? So AMD, obviously it's struggling with the 20-day, which is expected. I think, I don't think people wanted it to pull back as far as it did. But if we can get above this, let's just call it 148. If we can hold above 148 and start to have some productive price action, I think this thing gets going again. I don't think it looks broke yet. I just think right now it's just having a bit of a hesitation here with the underside of the 20-day. And honestly, I think it's just, I wish a lot of these tech names would spend more time going sideways. I feel like the sideways action is always like a week and a half, 2 weeks. I'd love to see some bases start forming that are 2-month base, 3-month base. That would be so sick, because then we can feel like the moves that emerge from those bases can get some actual follow through. But I swear, these ideas these bases that form that are a week and a half long base, like this AMD shit here, right? This to me isn't a long enough sideways action to have anything meaningful as far as the swing ideas. Trust me, there's 100 different ways to day trade anything like AMD. Look at the range and look at the volume, right? You can take 2, 3, 4 point trades on AMD every single day of the week, right? And same with Nvidia. Same, MU's pretty good right now. Nvidia, 16-point range. Chart looks the same, right? Struggling with the underside of the 20-day. But don't forget, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, this thing was the leader. People couldn't get this thing to pull back deep enough for them to get comfortable buying it. It just had so much strength, right? So how quick they forget, and how quick they'll jump right back on the bandwagon the second this thing starts shaping up again, okay? MU. Now MU is just in straight beast mode. Look at that, just beautiful break of this downtrend, and let's change to a hard time frame. Yeah, that was just a beautiful break, and it's just had some serious follow through ever since. Realize we are flirting with 52-week highs here, so my guess is if we get above those and then we start to hold, I'd be looking for the 20-day to kind of catch up and maybe get a little bit of support and then get ready for a bigger move. But I do like the look at MU. Yeah, Roman's pointing out SMH, which is the Semiconductor ETF, has had a bit of a base. Yeah, that was a decent base right there, and then it broke. So now, 2-3 weeks up here, nice little flag formation. Yeah, I think a lot of these a lot of these chip names might be getting ready. Let's look at AMAT too real fast. Now, here's a chart, guys. This chart here, the only thing out of all the chip names, it's probably the lighter of the volume ones, but this is a beautiful, beautiful daily chart. What I like about this, guys, is you have this base that we were just talking about, right? Like a nice long base, okay? And then we break above it, and what are we doing? Right now, it's just trying to hold the breakout from a, push up, pull back, hold the top of that breakout area. I think this thing might be getting ready. I like this chart, and in fact, let's see, how would I like to play this? So it's been up and away as far as last week, right? Like it was just up. I do want a pullback. I'm not going to chase it up here. So gap up on Monday, breaking highs, probably no trade for me as far as on the long side unless we get a deep pullback. But if we can get like maybe a gap down on the morning tomorrow and some early weakness, yeah, I'm definitely interested in AMAT towards the 150 area. 150 is that psychological level. It's also going to be right by the 20-day. So one thing I like to do, guys, is look into the intraday and just see how that level looks, right? So has it been tested a lot? Not a whole lot. You had like a test here and obviously from the underside, but I would like to see a little more than just this test here that held. We'll see. I'm going to keep it on watch. And hopefully we do get that pullback. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to be patient. I want the 20-day on AMAT just because it's had such a big run up. But I like this chart. Whoops. Totally just made the long time frame there. There we go. All right. I am going to set an alert above all-time highs as well, because if we get up there, I just want to know, and then possibly be looking to buy a dip maybe back into the quarterly pivot. But I like AMAT. Nice eye on AMAT. Jordan wants to look at Dollar Tree. I know that one's been in beast mode lately. Yeah, I like that chart too. And look, I think this alert was from last Sunday prep. So I'm leaving it there. Over that level, that's the long trigger. And then you want to be getting long on pullbacks into support with risk under, honestly, risk is going to be under this low from last week, which is 132.50s. Just call it 132.50s. The other way to play it, actually, yeah, this was an idea from the Sunday prep last week, and I remember exactly why I have this alert here too, and that is exactly what I said last week was I don't want to be buying weakness on Dollar Tree because the idea is that this thing has been a pillar of strength, right? So is it being a pillar of strength if we flush down to this 130 area? No. It doesn't mean I won't buy it for a bounce. There's 3 pivots right there. You have your monthly, your annual, and your quarterly. And it's also that 130 psychological level. So a flush to 130 and Dollar Tree's got me involved, but I'm not going to be around for long. I'm looking for a 2 to 3 point bounce on the name, and then I'd be out. But if we break above these highs up here, it's called 142.16, then I'm looking to buy a dip, and I'm looking to be involved for a longer trade and a bigger picture trade, not just a day trade, make a few points. But yeah, good eye on that, Jordan. Clack, semi with decent base. I feel like I've seen that one on my scanner a lot lately. Yeah, the volume's a little thin on that one too, though. Let's see here. Would I buy a breakout on AMAT? Oh, I guess I probably already answered that. HPQ setting up. Yeah. Plug. There's a name that's always got some range and some volume. I mean, it's right off the weekly 20. Honestly, I don't. There is 2 ways I would trade plug. Okay, I would trade plug on a flush, on an emotional flush, down into 27.50s, right off that weekly 20. I would scoop that and be looking to make, when we get those emotional flushes off the open into levels of support. Those are the kind of trades where I'm looking to get 2 to 1, 3 to 1, and real quick. And so, I will be buying it right into those levels with, I know exactly where it needs to hold for me to still be right. And so my stop would be below there, and I'd be looking for, on an emotional flush, I'm looking for separation from the price and the 1 minute 20. So if we flush down and I buy it, the target is the 1 minute 20, at least for the first spot to take a profit, right? And then after that, the 5-minute 20. But, you know, if you can get a 1.5 separation on a name like Plug, you know, it's a $28 stock, you flush and pull away from the 1-minute 20 by a point to a 1.5, that's, you know, you could have 30-40 cent risk right there and get that 2-to-1, and it's a high probability trade. I really like that idea. The other idea I would trade on this is an emotional spike. Same idea, but any emotional spike up into this 32 area, 32 to 32.70, I'm going to be fading that with the exact same concept, just from the opposite side. So that's Plug's a good I do like to trade Plug. No, Josh, these are not the TTs. These are, I actually use the built-in pivots from right here. Well, it's just the built-in pivots from TradingView, and you can pick between classical, traditional, the Woodies, the whatever the Corollas are. But I use traditional pivots. So you'll notice if you use the TT ones, you're going to have a different R3 and S3 than me. And you won't have S5 or R5. So that's a personal thing. Actually, Sunil in the chat, me and him both use the traditionals. So it's kind of up to you. I personally prefer the traditionals. Jordan's talking about CEI long. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, let's get back to what I am doing as far as just looking in here for ideas of things that have the range, have the volume, and are kind of showing what I like as far as strength wise, right? Let's see if there are actually any more of them. Not really. So I'm not gonna trade Xilinx, too thin. Let's take a look at COP. It's an oil name, ConocoPhillips. Yeah, so obviously was trying to anticipate a higher low here, and it rolled over lower. I still don't see anything broke on this chart. And remember, it's following all the oil stuff, right? So just a big flag here. We'll see if we get back above some highs. I don't see a trade in it right now unless we flush. I'll set an alert down for this this monthly pivot at the weekly 20. So I would play it off last week's lows, basically. COP. All right, so that's the way. Let's see, one second. TT and original are the same pivots, correct? It's not original, so there's classical and traditional. The TT ones that come, you know, that everybody is using over at TrueTrader are classical. Traditional are the ones that I prefer. What was I? Oh, I remember. So this is what I use to find long targets on strong stocks that I'm looking for them to continue higher. Oh, you know what? I did want to check out things like Oracle and QCOM real fast. Okay, Oracle. This came in on that news that they were buying a company. Because after earnings, this chart looked phenomenal. You know, pullback, push up, was holding, and then that big gap down after the news about them buying. I want to keep this on watch to see if the selling dries up. I want to see if this starts to find some buyers and some support, because this may end up coming back up towards 100, and that's it's over 10% away. So like, I'd love to catch a piece of that move. Oracle, QCOM looks good, and QCOM's just been in straight beast mode. I definitely want to be watching QCOM this week. Setting an alert towards the lows of last week. You got the quarterly pivot there. I am going to take a peek real quick and see what levels I like in here. 177. Let's see. I'd like to get as close to this quarterly pivot as possible. I am going to put an alert down here. But I am going to be having a QCOM on watch this week, guys. All right. So now the next section of longs are not for strong stocks where I'm looking for them to continue higher. They are for stocks that have gotten smoked and are just plummeting down, like capitulation, right? And I'm looking for them to have that oversold reversion bounce. And so I have a screener for that I use. It's just very simple, guys. And remember, if you guys watch this and be like, damn, some of the stuff he does is like ridiculously simple, it's supposed to be, right? That's not an accident. You guys don't want your shit to be so complicated that, I mean, keep it simple, guys. So all it is I'm looking for something with range. I want more than just 1 million shares. I want 2 million shares at least on average daily volume. And I'm looking for oversold. It's simple, right? So bump up to a 30 and see if we find anything. Bump up to a 40. So when we get into the 40s, that's not super oversold for me. And so none of these ideas are probably going to be worthwhile in terms of what I'm looking for, okay? So, but we'll take a look at them. A lot of times what happens is when I'm looking at them, I get ideas, okay? Good old Dix, DKNG, so a lot of these names are names that are just really beaten down. Keep Docu on watch for a break. Show you guys the level on Docu. Yeah, I would just be looking for a 159, 158.50 clear or something. Let's just call it 159. Has a lot of room. One back up to the highs from the day, what was this, December 9th, and then the 20 day. So this may get a push. In fact, the way it held that monthly pivot too on that pullback, I think I'd be setting alerts down there to buy this on a flush back into those levels. So I do want to be alerted if it comes in. Yeah, so I see True Trader kind of in there helping out. You use them the exact same way. I mean, all it does is change your R3 and your S3, guys, and give you S5 and R5. So, and I use it the exact same way that everybody else in True Trader is using the classicals, okay? So don't think that I'm using them differently. I'm not. Okay, real fast. Another thing that just popped into my head, guys, that a lot of times when there's not a lot of long ideas from the screener I use, I'll go into my strong stocks continuation thing and I'll look through the ideas that were recent ideas, right? Because a lot of times they still look good. DDOG is a great example. I'm putting an alert up here over these highs. I feel like DDOG is going to break and go back to all-time highs. I want to get involved in DDOG. Probably look to buy a flush. What's the range? 11-point range. Closed at 180. Yeah, so a flush down into the annual pivot is going to have me interested. It doesn't mean it's an automatic buy for me, but I definitely look, you got the 50-day and the 20-day all right there in the same spot. I'm looking to get involved in DDOG. This may be too early. I might want to be, I'm going to put in another alert a little lower too, because I like that weekly 20 and that quarterly and monthly pivot down there. So again, one of the things I like to do is take looks at these ideas of mine that, they're still good looking stocks. No reason to not have these on watch. Roblox, love this name, love the range, love the volume. Let's see if we clear this level. 107s should get a push. The first thing it's going to run into is the 20-day, but we clear that level. That 20 days a few points away. So like clear that level, buy the next dip back to support, makes a higher low. You can probably get 3, 4, 5 points out of the name before it ever runs into a spot where you would feel like you need to sell because of something on the chart, the 20-day, the quarterly, whatever. You need to have targets that are logical, rational, objective, right, guys? Sorry. Another thing though that I see right off the bat is that it held that quarterly pivot on Thursday, right? That dip on Thursday. So I definitely want to watch for another flush down there for a quick buy. So I like Roblox. There's DLTR, NUE, another nice looking chart right there. What's the range and the volume? Volume it's good enough volume. Nothing jumping out those levels. It's 5-point range. Puts it in like that 110 area. It's like the weekly 20. I'll throw an alert in there. Doesn't mean I'll trade it, but I do want to be notified if we come in off the open on Monday. MGM, that thing's been strong. See if that thing gets the pullback to this weekly 20. That's definitely on my watch, guys. MGM. Basically a breakout and then a retest of the breakout area. That's what I want. Okay, so, and then again, there's nothing really standing out in the oversold stuff. So that just is what it is, guys. I'm not going to like make up trades for you guys. So next thing is going to be weak stocks looking for continuation lower. So now we're getting into the short ideas. One of my favorite scans is short pops back into the 20-day. And so it's, you know, these are all weak stocks. Let's start back at page 1. There is a lot of them. There's 81 charts, right? But like I know when I'm looking at these, which charts really kind of jump out at me. Let's see here. Chewy had a crazy day the other week. I don't remember which day it was. Let's see, Chewy. Yeah, it was Thursday. So big push up right into that monthly pivot in that 20-day. Man. Let's see. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be looking for this thing to have an opening flush on Monday. And then I want to short the pop after. Like, so, not sure I'll be able to find an example of that in here. On a day, let's see. Like this. Exactly like this, except with a gap down. So something like this, where we flush off the open, and I want to short the pop right back into the 1-minute 20 VWAP area. So what that'll look like where we're trading at now is going to be, you know, maybe we open somewhere like sub 58.50, like below where this level was here, and then it kind of flushes, and then I want to hit that first pop. Or if we open flattish, I'll probably short the pop into Friday or Thursday's highs with really defined risk, right? Like, you know, if we break over Thursday's highs, your idea was wrong, right? So it's pretty black and white level of risk right there. So I'm going to put an alert up there. I definitely want to be involved in Chewy. I'm going to put an alert right here too in case we break that low from the midday on Thursday. PANW for tugboat. Let's do it. Oh yeah, dude, this is and what he's saying is he wants that pullback. That would be, this is the exact setup we're always talking about, guys. The pullback, the push up, higher low, and then the break, trigger, target, right? But if it's going to continue higher, it should continue to make higher lows. So what we want to do is be buying flushes into levels of support. So good eye on PANW, and it's always been one of my favorites too. It's, you know, what's funny is I didn't even realize it's a $500 stock now. I feel like the last time I traded it was in the 240s or something. It was back in it was from the sell-off in March of 2020. Where are we at here? Yep, this sell-off. Bought that in the IRA account, and I thought I was such a gangster because I sold it up into these 200s. This actually hurts to look at a little bit. Thanks, Tug. All right, so back to these weak stocks looking for continuation. DKNG is one that's been having a lot of trouble lately. You'll notice some of them have already popped into the underside of the 20-day. That's 2 in a row we've looked at, right? Already had the pop back into the 20-day. It's okay. There's some that haven't, okay, guys? And so we're going to find them, and those are the ones we want to pop into the 20-day. Let's look at eBay. Yeah, I feel like eBay's, even though the 20-day is higher, I feel like this is the level that it hit on Thursday. That 65.50 annual pivot is a retest of the breakdown area. Let's take a look at this Fubo. It's already into the 20-day. Or is everything into the 20-day already? Because freaking sure feels like it. GE into the 20-day. And see, what you'll notice, guys, is that you get these tails, these little tails right into the 20-day. It's because when things pop into the 20-day, you get that resistance and things end up retracing. Yeah, you can see them right here. I just want things that are, look, the price is below the 20-day. It's over a $15 stock, average true range of $1.50, over 2 million average volume, and I want price also to be below the 200-day. Okay, so just if you're trying to create a scan, the way to do it is to think about the setup you're trying to capture, right? So what makes a stock a good short? Well, one, it's not strong. You want stocks that are weak. Well, how do you define a stock that's weak? Stocks that are under the 200-day is a good place to start. Stocks that are under the 20-day are a good place to start, right? So it's really simple, super simple, okay? Let's see here. Keep on. All right, so remember, look at this. Kohl's. This is a great example, guys. KSS, what sector is that part of? That's part of the retail sector, right? Remember what we said about retail? Is that even though we're bouncing, we got a lot of overhead, right? So pop into the 20-day on retail, and names like Kohl's probably gonna find some resistance. And we're into the 20-day already on this one, but like use that thought process, guys. What are some other retail names? Nordstrom, Macy's. Macy's has room to the 20-day. Maybe Macy's makes a good push up here into the quarterly pivot. I want to put an alert there. See, that's how you find trades, guys. What else? Dix was one. We already saw the Dix chart. We could throw it up there. Now, one thing I'll point out about the Dix chart is that if it does pop into the 20-day, it's reclaimed the 200, right? So, not so sure I want to be shorting something that just reclaimed the 200-day. But there's other sporting goods names, right? ASO. There you go. Now, this one held the 200-day. That doesn't mean that it's not a good short if it pops into the 20-day. Range is 239, closed at 40.13. So that does kind of put us right up into that weekly 20 and the 20 SMA on the daily chart. What's the average volume? It's liquid enough. I'll throw an alert up there. But you see the thought process, right? Like first it started out with just seeing on the screener Kohl's. And what did it do? It reminded me of the sector analysis we did, which was showing us that retail may be running into problems. Oh shit, here's Kohl's. Oh, what other retail names are there, right? That's the way your brain needs to work as far as finding things. You mentioned before you wanted to talk about setting long targets but got sidetracked. Any chance you can speak on that? Apologies if you did, I'll go back through. Not sure what you mean. I think what I was saying was just that your targets need to make sense. Because the idea that I was using to highlight that was it Chewy? No, it was a long idea. One of the longs. Roblox. It was Roblox. Okay, what I was saying about Roblox and setting targets is if we break above Wednesday's highs, that's why you see how I have the alert set there, right? If I break above that high, I want to know about it. But I don't want to just buy it right when we break out. I want to look for a dip. I want to look for a higher low. I want to get long. And the idea is that the thesis is that we're going to have a trend develop. Higher lows, higher highs, and trend higher. And you know that you have nothing on the chart that tells you need to sell. I mean, other than maybe you start to get lower highs and lower lows on the intraday time frame. But as far as the chart itself, there's no reason to sell prior to the 20-day. So if you get long after breaking above 107.15 or 16, whatever it is, if you buy the dip after that, let's say you break over 107, you buy the next dip into the quarterly pivot at 106. There's nothing from the point you enter till the 20-day that gives you any reason to sell. So when you're talking in terms of targets, you say, look, well, I'm in from 106 and I have a possible target, 6 points higher, 5 points higher, right? So there's meat on the bone. And you also know, like, am I getting good risk reward here? Depends where your stop goes. That only you can answer that. But as far as setting targets, you know that you should be able to get 3, 4, 5 points out of this trade before it ever runs into any reason to sell. And then above that, you have the quarterly and the monthly. So like all I was saying about it was that your target should make sense. They can't just be like throwing darts. You can't just pick random numbers. Like I'm going to sell some here, right? Got to be methodical. All right, one second. Let's get back to the screener. Love. What's the first thing you think of when you see a ticker like Love? It's a sector, right? So I may pull up Love, very next thing I'm doing is pulling up UAL and AAL and RCL and NCLH and every other travel name. And I'm looking for what is the sector in general doing? Do any of these stand out as better looking short than others? DAL. There's a lot of them, right? So a lot of them actually look like they've already made their pushes up, and Love seems to be lagging, right? So Love really hasn't got the push that others are. Yo, what's up, Yogi? But I do want to take a peek at some of these. Let's see. Yeah, I think a lot of these names have pushed into levels where I feel like you're gonna start to see the retrace. And if that happens, right? So using NCLH as an example, this push up has run into some resistance. What makes me say that? Well, we finally got a red candle after nothing but green candles for 4 days, right? So if it comes lower, starts to come lower, I may look to short a pop back into resistance and have that thesis going of lower highs, lower lows, develop a trend day, you know, because if this wants to put in, it doesn't mean that it's bearish, but let's look at it from this point of view, right? Like if this is going to be the trend that this holds, it may need to pull back. What if it's going to put in a $1.50 red candle day, right? Like look at this red candle, right? What if it's going to put a candle like that in over here? Don't I want to be involved in that? Well, a good spot to get involved in that is once you see a push up like this start to come back in and then short the pop back into those levels. So I do want to keep an eye on things like this in not, you know, obviously the screener that we're using was looking for stocks where I can short a pop into the 20-day. That's obviously not the case here, but it shows me a chart that's pushed up, looks like it may be running into some trouble, and then we just freaking want to short the next pop back into resistance. Yeah, so Kim, Layla, you are a spammer. Can you kick rocks? Let's see. Remove. Bye. Oh, we got Craig in here too. What's up, guys? Merry Christmas, all you guys. All right, so let's get back to the thought process here. Searching for a stock to short a pop. What? Not that one. Neo. So one thing I do want to see is all the EV sector. Neo looks like it's ready to bounce. You see how we got that higher? This is a very bullish daily candle on Neo. So we've come way in, push up, higher low, and then the same day close back above all those previous levels. May look to buy a dip on Neo. Obviously that's not what we were looking for, right? We were not looking to find a long idea when we're sitting in here trying to identify stocks we can short a pop into the 20-day on. But you notice things when you're doing these scans and you start setting alerts. Okay, I do want to know if we come back in. Now I see a short trade here too, and that is the pop into the 20-day, and you got the monthly pivot right there. So 100% want to short Neo on a spike into 33.40. Okay, that's definitely on my list. And what I do, like I didn't do it yet, and I should have been doing it this whole time, but I'll throw these in my watch list, right? So actually I put it in the wrong one, sorry. Looking for weak stocks, looking for continuation. See, I have a ton of these. We can go through these and start looking for charts that look like good shorts. GRWG, any pop up in there. Let's get it. Make sure we have an alert for it because I know that I want to short anything in the pot sector. Neo. See, Neo was already in this list. A lot of times when stocks get on these weak kicks, right? Like they just can't find their footing. Every bounce makes a lower high. Every flush makes a lower low. They just can't ever get anything going. They end up staying on this list for quite a while. So like we can go through these names and you'll see they all freaking look the same, right? Yeah, definitely want to short a pop on Hog back into the underside of the 50-day. Hog has been a great short for a long time. We had this idea as a short back here, and it was based on these higher time frame things. Yeah, Hog was a beauty. Let's see here. AMC, somebody was saying that AMC right at 20. Yeah, we'll see. You know, I trade AMC almost every day because it has the volume and the range. We'll see what it does if it gives us a trade. I mean, I know I'll have a trade on this a few times this week, but there's nothing worth pointing out on it as far as what I want from it you know, maybe longs. I'll buy it into 24 with a stop under whatever this date was, September 17th or December 17th lows, on an emotional flush. But not going to do anything with it on the watch list this week. PDD. See, a lot of these are just riding the 20-day down. AMD is no longer on this list, that's for sure. Let's take it off. Boeing. What's this? eBay, yeah. Again, I think we said this about eBay already, but I think that annual pivot was probably it. It's probably going to come back in after that. Maybe on figs. I don't know. What's the 2 points away? It puts this right around the ATR. I'll throw an alert in. There's no pivot there. Doesn't mean I won't trade it. Guys have to understand that these pivots are not like written in stone for me. I'll short things that go into levels that aren't necessarily pivots. Doesn't bother me in the least bit. All right, dun, 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 dun. Let's see if we find any more that stand out. Somebody was asking about pins. Pins is right here in this list. I mean, pins is another one that, I mean, objectively, all it's doing is riding the 20-day lower, right? So until that changes, I don't expect anything different, right? Here's a nice one. Square's got a bit of space back up to this 20-day. I'm gonna set an alert there on that one. So you can see I had an alert set higher, but get rid of that one fast. Let's see. Someone's asking what the blue lines and the orange lines are. The orange are quarterly pivots. The blue are monthly pivots. The whites are the annuals. ANET and ARES, Ricky, any thoughts? Let's see. I don't think I trade either of those. Just I see the volume. The average volume is like almost 3 million shares a day, but I feel like every time I pull this chart up, it's really, really thin. Let me look at the 1 minute. So I always look at a 1 minute chart to see. Yeah, so like I won't day trade stuff like this, but I won't shy away from swing trades on them. But when I see these gappy 1 minute candles, they scare me away. And the RE, I don't even know this ticker, which, let's see. Yeah, the volume's too thin on that one for me as well, sorry. Let's see. I have to get ready for work. Yeah, no problem, Logan. Or Josh. You got a first name for your last name and a first name for your first name. Let's see. Penn trades with DKNG. I'll set an alert up there under the 50-day on that one. Okay, there's a few left here I do kind of want to look at. Mara and Riot. Remember I talked about the way they had big days on Thursday. Like, look at that green candle on Mara. So Mara is going to be on watch for sure. I'm kind of going to be hoping for the underside of the weekly 20, which is 44. So I'll put an alert up there and up here. The annual pivot. The annual pivot is what rejected it the last time it popped, right? So anything up in there. So I love Mara for a short if it can get going. Do you guys remember Bitcoin? We did that in the opening part about the broader market, right? So what's my A+ setup? I have a lot. It just depends what strategy we're talking. I love those big emotional spikes in the underside of the 20-day. That's a big setup of mine. QS had my attention. That EV sector, FSR. Gotta look at a few of them and see what's going on here. I trade Lucid almost every day. See Lucid kind of making a bit of a base here. I'm wondering, my opinion, and remember, my opinion doesn't mean shit, okay? But I am allowed to have one. And my opinion is that this is going lower and that this is just like a little bear flag. So I have that alert set. Basically what I'm doing is if we crack those lows from Let's just see what the exact level is. Under 36.35. We get under 36.35, and I'm shorting pops with just trying to get involved with this because I think we're coming down to the weekly 20, which is 32. Not sure it happens in a single day or whatever, but this, I feel like, is one of those things that got overinflated quickly because of the hype and the sector theme going on there with the EV stuff. And I feel like, you know, it reminds me a lot of like Fubo during this phase, right? Obviously, it had a secondary push. I think it had a big pump in there or whatever. But eventually, when they start to come back in, they come way back in, right? So I actually feel like that's what we're seeing with Lucid here. And I could be wrong. Maybe we go higher. I don't know. But to me, this feels like the hype has kind of ran its course, and RIVN IPOing was kind of the pinnacle of it all, right? And since that, you know, people got really, really FOMO-y and chased that way up, and look how far it's come back in, right? Like, that's a big fade from those highs. And I feel like that's what we're seeing, I think, with Lucid and probably some other names out there as well. All right, could you share the FinViz scan for overextended charts setting up for reversal? That's the simple one, guys. That's the one that's just, I like them over 15 bucks, and we're going to get into that one right now, the overbought reversion. Okay, so it's the same as the oversold reversion. Remember, it's very simple. You just want over 2 million shares average, over 1.5 points of range, and we're going to go into the overbought area here. Nothing on the 90, maybe the 80. So CERN, I'm not messing with that because it was a buyout. So there's probably nothing there for me. Now we had to come in, we had to loosen the parameters to 70, right? So overbought RSI of 70 isn't really that good in terms of like how extreme something is. So I'll look through the charts real quick, but if nothing like really jumps out at me, I don't want to force anything. Yeah, nothing really stands out here, guys. I think I've had CF in this list before. Yeah, I think it was during this push. But again, like, this is not that extreme. So the concept behind this scan is looking for things that are really extreme. If it's not extreme, I don't want, there's less of an edge, right? The more extreme something gets, the higher the probability is that you're going to get that move you're looking for. I'm going to go through some of these questions here in the chat. 1 second. When do you know a stock is no longer weak and ready to go long? Take pins, for example. Well, for example, with pins, okay, so it's very simple. What's it doing now that's not strong, right? What about this is weak? Every pop makes a lower high, and especially when it hits key levels, like the 20-day, right? So look at this. Breakdown, push into the 20-day, heads lower. Push into the 20-day, heads lower. Just push into the 20 again. Now, what happens next? Well, if it's going to stay weak, it's going to head lower. If we head higher, so let's say the first thing I would like to see it do is get above the highs from the last time it rejected. And even that does not make it strong again. That just means, okay, we got back above that. After we push back above these highs, then I want to see the lows start to put in higher lows. I mean, the opposite of a downtrend is higher highs and higher lows. So, I mean, here's a very simple way of knowing when pins is strong. When it looks like this. See the difference? That's an uptrend. So when pin starts to look like this, then you want to buy dips. But when it looks like this, you want to short pops. It's very simple. Yeah, CERN is, there's no trade in there for me, Yogi. When do you do back tests? How far back do you go back? I go back, it depends on the back test and how I'm conducting it, but like when I do it with like Spike Heat, I pull data, back to 2000 if I want. Like, I mean, there's no such thing as having too big of a sample size, right? If I back test on a platform that allows you to do it, the problem with that, and hopefully you understand this, is that it only lets you back test. Well, most of the ones I've played around with only lets you back test on one equity at a time, right? But that equity, I want to back test it with that strategy as far back as it'll let me go. So, at least 1 or 2 years with just that equity, and then comparing it against other equities with the same strategy. It's just on TradingView, it's just Alt-I inverts the chart. If you're on Thinkorswim, you just put a negative sign in front of your ticker symbol. But yeah, there's nothing really standing out for me in terms of things that are overbought right now either. There's definitely a lot of these tech names. Let's look at, here's another thing. I always like to look at the high beta names just so I can get a feel of what they're doing as well. Plus, these are the stocks that have the heavier weighting in the index. So like, you know, if Apple starts coming in or whatever, the market's going to have some struggles too. God, it got the 20-day. Remember, that was like when we had this on the A+ setup, that was the target. And it got there, and what did it do the second it got there? It bounced. It's how stocks move, guys. It's how they behave. Microsoft, this one looks good. Microsoft looks really good, actually. Let's see if we can get a break above some levels, but I may be looking to buy some Microsoft on some opening weakness. I like to trade Microsoft. I always feel like it behaves pretty well. Tesla had a crazy last week. Man, this is a short for me if we spike hard into these monthly and quarterly pivots up here. That's why I got an alert. Top of this trend line. If this move continues without a pullback, I really like the probabilities of a good short right there. KH says, when does the Santa rally happen? Bro, what about this chart doesn't say Santa rally? Look, we're at all-time highs. Santa rallied like a mofo. That's all I can say. Santa rally happened. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Hopefully, you guys, I mean, I don't have like big aspirations for this week. I feel like this week's going to be like low volume, not a lot of stuff standing out. I just want a few ideas that I can keep on watch and maybe capitalize on those. But the real hopes I had in doing this like freestyle version of the Sunday prep was just so you guys could actually get the thought process behind the way I do it, right? It's not all about just do this. Like if I just give you like a step-by-step process, like 1, look at SPY, 2, look at Qs, 3, look at Bitcoin. No, like you have to understand why. It's always about why. So once you guys learn the whys, you can do it yourself, and then you can have your own insights and your own aha moments and your own trade plans. And trust me, it's much more powerful for you guys to learn to fish than it is to be just fed fish, right? So Merry Christmas. Let's close out 2021 with a bang, and let's get ready for an amazing 2022. I love you all. If you haven't checked out True Trader, guys, go over there, check it out. Seriously, hands down, the best community I've ever been a part of, and extremely affordable too. So make sure you guys check out True Trader. Until next Sunday prep, I'll talk to you guys later.